Hey everybody, Scoutcrafter here again. Mishmash Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. Went fast, didn't it, this one? A couple things to talk about today. We got you remember Scott Doerger. Now, Scott was the person who introduced us to that Colorado surplus and commodity store in Colorado. That's so awesome. And we did an episode on that, and Scott sent in some cool stuff. Well, you know, we were conversing over email, and Scott said, I got something else I got to send you. And we spoke about it, and this is a really awesome thing. I got to show you. But he also sent along a box of other stuff, and we got a few things to talk about. Let's get right to it. Mishmash Monday. Let's fire it up. Okay, the first thing that Scott sent down was a box of patina, as he likes to call it. And in here, he just had some tools that he, threw in here because he knows that we like to do a little projects here and there, and he enjoys that. So we have some interesting tools here. A couple of pipe wrenches, and he had a laugh because of what I mentioned about working on these old pipe wrenches. But look at this one here. He really likes a challenge, huh? Look at that. That thing was broken a long time ago, because you can see it's got patina on the brake. But interesting challenges, to say the least. This thing has more bends than a curvy road. But look at this one here. This one here has a couple bends, but it's a keen cutter. Keen cutters are quite collectible. Nice tool. And this one here, I love the little recess here. We could do something nice with that. These are in perfect condition. A nice pair of Crescent LS25 pliers, with the thin wall. You don't see these too often. Very nice. Very lovely. Somebody used this square as a paint stirrer, because there's gray paint on there. It looks like they stirred paint with it. Come on, we've all been guilty of stirring paint with stuff that we shouldn't really stir with, at one time or another. But it's got the brass inlay, and the brass. This would make a really interesting cleanup, huh? Because it's a nice square, but somebody just didn't think so by stirring it with paint. And last, in the patina pile, was this Jorgensen 104, and it's a 4-inch clamp. And I tell you, look at the threads on there. These were solid threads. It's missing the compression plate, the swivel plate, but I like the butterfly. This is a good challenge, so we'll have some fun with Next up, he sent some goodies from the surplus store, and I'll tell you, that store is fantastic. He goes there. A lot of times he goes with his dad and things like that, and he's been going there for years. If you haven't hit that store, or you didn't see that episode, go check out this Colorado Surplus and Commodities, and it's a fantastic store. And I'm telling you, there's a ton of hidden gems in there, and they're not going to be open that much longer. First thing he sent, look at these. And look, he must have the same Bauer grinder that I have, which is a fantastic grinder. But he sent a couple of these new old stock. Look at this. How I'm a big light bulb guy. New old stock. Not a beautiful bulb. 300 watts. And it's a long life. And if you look here, it's hard to see here under the writing, but it says here 2,500 hours. Now that was a long life, because anything over 1,000 hours had to be listed as a long life. And another thing is, you could tell by the voltage, it says 130 volts. Now, we typically use between 115, 120 volts is pretty much max in our area. So by just going that extra 10 volts makes the bulbs a long life bulb. And that's why if you use a dimmer switch and you drop it down just 10 volts, you can make any bulb into a long life bulb. So real interesting. Love these old vintage style bulbs. Okay, so let's check out the goodies from the surplus store. I'm telling you, if I was there, if I was in Colorado, I don't care how far, I would travel hours to get to this place, because they have fantastic stuff. Let's take a look little by little what he sent here. First of all, he sent a couple of these brushes. These are, now I'm a big brush guy, but first of all, look at the beautiful wood that they used here, and the curvature of how this was made. Just spectacular. Apparently they were 98 cents each, but here they are. It's a stiff nylon brush, But the beautiful thing about this is because they're short, they're only about a ½ an inch long, they are very stiff. So this would make almost like a wire brush, but a nylon that it wouldn't damage, but it's very stiff. Beautiful brushes. I mean, that's worth the trip there alone. So nice. Thank you for that. And, okay, we'll get to this one last. Look at this. New old stock, which this Colorado place has tons of new old stock. ½ inch USA. Look at this. It's called a palm grip. Can you see that? The writing, palm grip. And the model number is ND16. So it's a ½ inch nut driver. That's what ND stands for. And it's got that back plate that you can put a ratchet on and use it that way. So what a nice little tool, having that beautiful yellow acrylic handle. Love it. Next up, check this out. I love the graphics of some of these old-time tool company. Look at this, is called a Skokie, a 3/16 wood bit. Now this is all the sizes that they had. I'm sorry, 13/16. I was going to say that's a pretty big 13/16. This is all the sizes they had, and I'm sure what they used to do is with a marker, they would take a marker and put a dot next to it or something, but it's already marked on there. And you can see these are the sizes they had, and it's a typical spade bit. But, you know, again, I have never used this type of spade bit before. Have you ever seen one like this before? Look at it. It's interesting how this is made. You know, they probably had shafts that were common, and they just had, you know, they punched these out. Let's try this out and see how I'm a big fan of all kinds of spade bits, but the thin profile of this cutter, you know, seems, you know, we have to see how it's going to cut, but it looks like a high carbon steel or something, so they didn't have to have high quality steel all the way through, and this is probably a little bit more malleable. Let's try it out on this 2x3 and see how it cuts in. Oh, very, very smooth. Look at that. Nice cut in there. I mean, you know, pine always has a lot of tear out. Flat bottom. Absolutely beautiful bit. It works like a charm. Very nice. Now, one thing I'm going to say, this is more or less a collectible bit. And so what I'll do is I'll return it to the original packaging like this. I sprayed it down with some WD-40 and hit it with a toothbrush to make sure there's no wood chips or anything in there that can rust later on. But it's an interesting little bit. And there is flats on this very bottom reduced section here. So very interesting bit. Never seen these before. Next up, some more new old stock. And again, like I said, I just like having these around because when you look at the old packaging, these are long gone. You'll never see these again. So when you find them like this, I won't use this, obviously. I'll make my own if ever I need a mending plate. But just the fact that this is like a part of history, that's why I like them so much. And you can see here, these were 2-inch mending plates, and they come in handy so many times. These came with the screws. They were slotted screws, which everybody loves so much. But these were made in Japan, and this was probably made when Japan was starting to make a little bit more quality, because these do have a nice zinc coating on here. Nicely done, nice packaging. Premier was the company that made these. Very nice. Now, last up were these 3 beautiful chisels, and these are probably the 3 most chisels that I use all the time. And you can see they were made by Western Forge. Western Forge was an American company that was known to make tools for all different manufacturers, but they did put their name on some tools, but they were usually farmed out to other companies like Craftsman, things like that. As a matter of fact, you could see this one here was probably a second. This was a Craftsman. You could see here they ground off most of the name, but you could see it's clearly Craftsman. And look at the tip grind on here. Can you see that? You could see that that tip grind wouldn't be considered a passable grind, so it probably became a second. And so they took off the Craftsman name, but you know, they sold it to this commodity place in Denver. And this one here, I don't see anything wrong with, but again, there's no grind. This was their own name, Western Forge. Great. And same thing here. This one here is a 1/16 pin punch. So these are always great. And you could see, if you ever look at Craftsman screwdrivers, you'll see, sometimes you'll see a WF, and that stands for Western Forge. They made this particular screwdriver for craftsmen. Now, the last item from the hardware store, and the absolute best buy that I can imagine, he picked up these new old stock Crescent locking pliers, 10-inch straight jaw, 10S straight jaw. Look at this, made in a time, still made in the United States of America. Beautiful design. Look, I've never seen these before, never seen them in person. Check out how they work, how they open. They have the squeeze design, which is quite rare here in the States, but you can see that little lever unlocks it, and and look at the teeth on that. Beautiful, fantastic pliers. They have a nice, unusual knurling on the back here. Just a grand set of pliers. Have you ever seen a Crescent locking pliers? I've seen the curved jaws, never seen, and the USA ones are very hard to find because they're all made overseas. But that locking jaw and the teeth on there, that is a beautiful pair of locking pliers, or what we would call vice grips. Okay, next up is what we've all been waiting for. You could see here, Scott is a craftsman himself in many different ways. His whole family is. And in fact, his mother last time sent down a beautiful quilt that she handmade to my girlfriend, and sent it down last time when they sent down. It was just beautiful. Look at the workmanship, the design. It's just absolutely gorgeous. The stitching, amazing. So everybody in his family does something that's interesting. And Scott made these signs. He has a stencil maker that we'll talk about another time, because I've been in the market for one ever since he told me about it. But he makes up these stencils with an old 1950 stencil machine. But let me show you what he sent. And here it is. How cool is this? A vintage, original payphone. That's right, an original payphone. What we grew up with, what I grew up with anyway, you know, even though we did have the dial ones when I was younger, but this is the one that we remember until the kind of the demise of payphones when the cell phone came out. But these were heavy duty, made bulletproof, much like the parking meters were. And it's funny, as bulletproof as these were made, the gorillas that work in UPS managed to break the receiver, the handset, and I JB welded it, but they managed to snap it in two by probably throwing it off the truck, because Scott had double boxed it and had foam between the boxes, so I don't know how they did it. But anyway, let's take a look at this. I've never opened one up. He sent the keys and a bunch of accessories. How cool is this? Let's check it out. Now, every payphone comes with a set of keys, and it's quite intricate how it works. But let me show you how, first of all, we get the change out of a payphone. Thing you'll see is there's a pretty intricate key that goes over here to the left, and then you turn that and you turn it to the left, a quarter turn. Then you take one of these T keys, and that'll open up the case here, and let me show you how that opens. Now, this will only work if that other key has been engaged already. Place this in, quarter turn to the right, and you see this intricate, look at that. How cool is that? It locks all four so you can't pry it out. So then, here is the cash box. The cash box will come out like this, and when it comes out, this will close the change. There's where the change goes in. Now, you cannot get in there until you open this up. So if they put another lock here, a smaller lock, you know, this is just a block change lock. But what you do is you open this up like this. Once you take that lock off, if there was one, and this would have your change. Now, there's a little section here I had to take off. It was giving me too much problem. But you reset it when you're putting this back. You have to reset it. And that will allow this little lever here to engage when you put this back in and slide this back into the phone. And again, this all gets reversed to put back. Now, the reason they did this with the multiple keys is so that the service technician that might have serviced the phone couldn't have access to the money box, you know, and vice versa. So now, if you needed to service the phone, you would take, again, this is a separate key, goes in here like this, and you would give it just a short turn, about, I'd say about a 20-degree turn up. You take your universal key in here, and then you give it a turn down. You heard that disengage, and then this slides right back and back off like this. And this gives you access to the inside of the phone. As you could see, it was quite complicated, you know, like these phones had to last all. Here's the change unit where the change would go down into the fare box, and the back of the phone here had a very elaborate locking system so that you couldn't get into it. It's an amazing whoever developed this. And again, this is all cast steel. This is all hardened case. You know, you know how bulletproof these phones were. Let me show you how to put it back together. Now, to put it back together, remember, these will all engage into a steel channel back here. So to put it back together, you have to rest this on here, and we slide this straight back like this, quarter turn up, this key comes down, and guess who's your uncle? Now you can see there's my number here. But what's interesting is you can see these are two advertising plates. This one here is for directions for the phone. This one here might have been some other. And Scott actually included a whole bunch of them. Let me show you. Scott also sent a bunch of accessories, like a brand new face plate here. He said if I wanted to mint it out, or if I wanted to make it look old, or whatever the case may be. A bunch of these. Remember, these are the inserts. Remember the inserts that would go here? I just put one there temporary, but you see it here? That was the inserts on tell you how to use the phone, things like that. Up here was some instructional buttons, and there were different ones. There was this one, and then this one here to increase volume. So all these things we took for granted. You never even think about. And lastly, because he knew it was going to go up in my attic most likely, he sent a couple of new old stock signs. These are the kind of signs you would see hanging outside a building, and here's the actual sign holder. You would see this would screw onto the part of the building. These two holes would go in there, and this would say phone inside, and a couple, if I put on top of the phone, they usually had those enclosures, those aluminum enclosures. Here's an illuminated sign. How cool is that? I mean, did he hook me up or what? So in closing, I guess that's everything you've ever wanted to know about a payphone that you never knew before. Some people, there are some youngsters that have never seen a payphone. I mean, think about it. They've been gone for years. Pretty interesting. And special thanks to Scott. Really hooked me up today. And I hope you all have a great start of the week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care now. Bye-bye. And don't forget, you still have plenty of time to get that Key Caddy Challenge entry in. Friday midnight is the deadline. If you want to check out some other YouTube creators that have done some great stuff, just go to your YouTube search box and type in Scout Crafter Key, and you'll see a bunch of them pop up. Now, if you have an entry you want to send a photo by Friday, just send it to my email address here, and looking forward to getting them. Thanks.